Only this plane can beat the F-22 Raptor. With what's in the YF-23 so it can beat the Raptors? With all the advantages of the YF-23, it is natural that the question arises, why was this aircraft then eliminated from the ATF program? Why did the Pentagon choose the Lockheed YF-22? There are three main factors at play in favor of Lockheed, according to Majumdar. First, politics is very important. Watts explained that Northrop and his partner McDonnell Douglas had resented Air Force and Pentagon leadership with their performance on B-2 bombers and A-12 aircraft for the Navy. The second factor is the U.S. Navy. Even though the service has dropped out of the ATF program, the U.S. Navy still decides what aircraft to choose. The Navy's choice is a naval variant of the YF-22 design, which looks like an F-14 Tomcat with a variable geometry wing. The team, working hard on every detail of the NATF, Naval Advanced Tactical Fighter, design in the late 1989 and early 1990s, produced a swing-wing fighter jet that was highly stealthy and could supercruise. It is perfectly suited to operating from an aircraft carrier, said Sherm Mullin, who leads the Lockheed Skunk Works ATF program. The Navy still has a say in the ATF competition, and, as we later found out for sure, their choice was cast on our F-22s. The Navy did not like the YF-23 derivative, which had a canard configuration that was considered less attractive. Although then the Navy had to swallow the bitter pill because their program was cancelled until now. The third major factor is that Northrop is sticking with the proposed requirements of the Tactical Air Command concept while Lockheed is aiming for the Command Air Combat, ACC, which the Air Force wants. Theoretically, the YF-23's combination of speed, altitude and stealth should do the day. Instead, ACC operators wanted to ensure that the ATF was maneuverable enough to defeat any adversary within visual range. Moreover, pilots wanted a jet that had superior agility at all speeds, altitudes and angles of attack. Lockheed better understands the Air Force's desire for a very agile fighter with the Raptor. Watt described the YF-22 as the Super F-15 the Air Force wanted operationally. In the decade and a half since it first entered service, the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor has become the unequaled air superiority fighter, but that hasn't always been the case. For a brief time in the 1990s, the YF-22 that would lead to the operational F-22 may have found a match in the form of Northrop's YF-23. Either of these highly capable airframes will result in a dominant air superiority fighter that will be the first of a new generation, and in fact, performance may not even be the main deciding factor between the two jets. Perception is everything, even in the airplane business. New fighter for old war. In the 1980s, the United States Air Force began hunting for a new type of fighter that could dominate the latest generation of Soviet jets such as the Su-27 and MiG-29. While the Soviet Union was less than a decade away from collapse, their fighter was a highly capable fourth-generation platform developed specifically to counter America's flagship F-15 Eagle and multi-purpose F-16 Fighting Falcon. Instead of continuing to develop more powerful, higher-flying fighters as was the norm throughout much of the Cold War, the Air Force wanted to incorporate a newer and unique American capability into its next-generation fighter, stealth. Among their other requirements is the ability to supercruise, or maintain supersonic speeds without using the aircraft's afterburners. The super cruising range means the new fighter will be able to get close to enemy jets at high speed without sacrificing a lot of fuel, ensuring the new fighter will have plenty of battle left after the long journey into the battle room. The Air Force intends to order 750 winning fighters to replace the F-15 Eagle as America's first line of defense against incoming Soviet bombers and fighters. In late 1986, two teams were selected to develop the concept of a next-generation fighter. Northrop teamed up with McDonnell Douglas, and Lockheed, Boeing, and General Dynamics gathered their opposition. Both Lockheed and Northrop have experience developing stealth platforms for the U.S. Air Force. Lockheed is responsible for the world's first operational stealth aircraft, the F-117 Nighthawk. Northrop had lost to Lockheed in the competition for the contract, but continued to work on their stealth concept until it matured into the B-2 Spirit, which remains in service to this day. While the F-22 Raptor bears similarities to conventional fourth-generation fighters despite its stealth design, the YF-23 is somewhat unconventional. Like the F-22, it uses diamond-shaped wings to reduce its radar signature, but they diverge dramatically at the nose and tail. The YF-23's nose is striking, with its cockpit pushed forward against the fuselage for increased visibility and a drooping duck nose adding to the platform's alien aesthetic. At the rear, the movable V-tail provides the aircraft with exceptional maneuverability despite the F-22's lack of thrust vectoring on the platform. While the F-22 Raptor bears similarities to conventional fourth-generation fighters despite its stealth design, the YF-23 is somewhat unconventional. Like the F-22, it uses diamond-shaped wings to reduce its radar signature, but they diverge dramatically at the nose and tail. The YF-23's nose is striking, with its cockpit pushed forward against the fuselage for increased visibility and a drooping duck nose adding to the platform's alien aesthetic. At the rear, the movable V-tail provides the aircraft with exceptional maneuverability despite the F-22's lack of thrust vectoring on the platform. According to Tyler Rogoway at Warzone, Metz worked for Northrop and Lockheed and was not known for hyperbole. But even after flying the pre-production F-22, a much more mature engine than the YF-23 ever saw, he explained that Northrop's offering was on par with Lockheed, if not superior. In an in-depth talk to the senior group at the Western Museum of Flight, where one of the famous YF-23s is on display in full, Metz stated, "Never bow your head in shame about what we do. We build amazing products that will stand side by side with anything, and in many cases exceed anything else. And we can always be proud of that." Metz and another test pilot Jim Sandberg added that, both aircraft met ATF requirements and Lockheed was selected because the Air Force had greater confidence that they could better manage the program. YF-23 vs. F-22. Lockheed sales skills, pizzazz perhaps. According to Metz, Lockheed had the advantage of being able to showcase and market its fuselage much better than Northrop. He noted that not everyone who would be in a position to choose a fighter is an engineer, and they may not even be technically savvy. So leaving a lasting impression, on a conceptual level, even if they don't tell the whole story technically, can give one side an advantage over the other, writes Rogoway. The Northrop team is made up of brilliant engineers. Metz says they can't be compared, but they think and speak almost exclusively in engineering terms. Meanwhile, Lockheed was incorporating more marketing, salesmanship, and pizzazz, a lasting impression, as Metz eloquently put it, into their YF-22 flight demonstration program. They basically understand how to sell their aircraft and how showability greatly influences the acquisition decision-making process. Northrop does not, and that fact may prove fatal to the YF-23. Volume_up content_copy share *_border